Welcome, everyone. Ready to do a deep dive into the world of Johann Sebastian Bach.
I'm excited.
Me too. We're going to try to cover his life, his music, and really get into why he's still considered such a musical giant all these centuries later.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. Why does Bach still matter so much?
Yeah. So we're using excerpts from a biographical entry as kind of our roadmap today. So
Yeah.
get ready for like a crash course on the maestro.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning. Bach was born in 1685 in Eisenach, Germany.
hmm
Not exactly a random place to find a musical prodigy, huh?
No, not at all. Actually, his family was like bursting with musical talent. Like his father was a town musician, and then he had a bunch of relatives who were also really accomplished musicians.
Wow.
Like musicality was like built into their DNA or something.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And unfortunately, Bach's life took a kind of a tough turn pretty early on.
Oh yeah.
He became an orphan when he was only 10, and then he had to go live with his older brother, Johann Christoph, who was
Mhm.
also a musician.
Yeah.
And that time that he spent with his brother really played a big role in, shaping Bach's future.
It's interesting how those early hardships that he had to go through
Yeah.
seem to almost like fuel his dedication. You know, like living with his brother wasn't just about having a roof over his head. It was
Oh,
like a seriously intense, like musical apprenticeship.
oh, wow.
Imagine learning from like a family member who's already a pro in the field.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. I bet those years with his brother, they must have given him like a rock solid work ethic
Oh, yeah.
and like a deep, deep understanding of music, like
Yeah.
all the fundamentals. It just seems like such a formative experience for a young musician, especially one who's just like starting out.
Absolutely. And you see that foundation like shining through his entire career. I mean, think about it. He held all these different positions across Germany: Arnstadt, Mühlhausen, Weimar, Cothen.
Wow.
And then, of course, he ended up in Leipzig as the Thomas Cantor.
Yeah.
Each stop, like, added another layer to his musical development.
It's really interesting. It's almost like he was collecting these musical experiences like puzzle pieces that
Yeah.
would, eventually all fit together to create his unique style.
Yeah.
So by the time he reached Leipzig, I mean, was he like already considered a master?
Well, he was definitely well respected as an organist.
Okay.
But, the full recognition of his true genius as a composer, that wouldn't come until much later.
Okay.
But in those early roles, you can really see him experimenting, pushing the boundaries. Like, for example, in Weimar, he just dove headfirst into organ music and composed some of his most, like, virtuosic pieces. That's really where his mastery of counterpoint, like, really blossomed.
Okay, counterpoint.
Yeah.
I've heard that term thrown around a lot, but I'm not a musician. Can you break that down for us in like, regular people terms?
Sure. So imagine, like, the musical conversation
Okay.
where you've got multiple melodies happening at the same time,
Mm.
and they all have their own, like, personality.
Yeah.
But they like intertwine and interact with each other to create this harmonious whole.
Wow.
That's counterpoint in a
Oh,
nutshell.
okay. Okay.
It's like a tapestry made of different threads of melody.
Yeah.
And Bach, he was like the master weaver.
Okay. So it's not just about having like a catchy tune, it's about creating this whole like intricate web
Exactly.
of melodies that work together to
Yeah.
create this harmony.
Yeah, exactly. And Bach, he took it to a whole other level. Like take his fugues, for example.
Okay.
They are like prime examples of his contrapuntal mastery. So in a fugue, you have a single theme. It's called the subject.
Okay.
And it's introduced, and then it's imitated by different voices. So it creates this intricate dance of melodies.
So it's kind of like a musical game of like chase or tag
Yeah.
with the theme kind of bouncing around between different instruments or vocal parts.
Precisely. And Bach was so incredibly skilled at like developing these themes and weaving them together in increasingly complex ways. He'd use techniques like inversion,
Oh.
where the theme is flipped upside down, or stretto, where the theme overlaps with itself,
Okay.
creating this sense of like urgency and excitement.
Wow, it sounds incredibly complex.
Yeah.
It's amazing that he was able to create music this intricate while also juggling all these different positions, composing for various instruments and ensembles. And we haven't even like touched on any of his really famous works like
Yeah.
the Brandenburg concertos or the
Yeah.
Goldberg variations.
Right. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But before we dive into those masterpieces,
No. All right.
I think we should consider another aspect of Bach's genius, which is his incredible versatility.
Okay.
Like, he wasn't content just sticking to one genre or instrument.
Right.
He composed for orchestra, keyboard, organ, and voice,
Yeah.
mastering each form with, like, equal brilliance.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like he had this never-ending curiosity, this drive to explore, like, every
Yes.
corner of the musical world.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder how he even found the time to do it all.
I know. Well, that's where his personal life kind of comes into play.
Okay.
So not only was he like this ridiculously prolific composer, he was also a really dedicated family man.
Okay.
He was married twice and had 20 children.
Wait, 20 children?
20 children.
Wow. That's a whole orchestra right there.
I know.
It's amazing to think about him composing these, like, masterpieces
Yeah.
while also raising this huge family. Did his personal life ever, like, influence his music, do you think?
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
While, we can't know for sure, it's tempting to think that the joys and challenges of, family life
Yeah.
might have found their way into his compositions, adding like another layer of emotional depth to his work.
It makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
Like, did he ever use his children, like, as inspiration for new melodies? Or, did he, like, try out new compositions on his family?
I know.
It'd be such a fascinating glimpse into his world, I think.
Absolutely. It reminds us that behind the genius, there was a real person
Yeah.
with a rich and complex life.
Yeah.
But speaking of complexity, there's another key aspect of Bach's music that I think we should explore, and that's his innovative use of harmony and motivic organization.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for another musical deep dive.
Cue.
Hit me with it. What makes his approach to harmony so special?
All right. So harmony,
Yeah.
it's easy to get lost in the technical stuff, but
Yeah.
think of harmony like colors on an artist's palette.
Oh.
Bach wasn't just using like the standard chords. He was blending them, contrasting them, creating these like really vibrant soundscapes.
So he was kind of pushing the boundaries
Oh, absolutely.
of what was considered harmonious back then.
Totally.
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid to like experiment with dissonance, create tension, and then resolve it in ways that like surprised people.
Oh, I see. I see.
And that's part of what makes his music so like captivating.
Yeah.
You're always on your toes.
Yeah. It's like he's creating these musical puzzles.
Exactly.
They keep you guessing, but then it all comes together in the end.
Right, exactly. And then there's motivic organization.
Okay.
This is where you really see Bach's like architectural mind at work.
Okay.
He wasn't just writing pretty melodies, He was constructing entire pieces around these recurring musical ideas. We call those motifs.
So it's like he's building a cathedral.
Yes.
Each musical phrase is like a building block,
That is such a good analogy.
adding to the overall structure and
Yeah.
the grandeur of the whole thing.
Exactly. Think of the opening of his Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
Oh, yeah.
That iconic theme.
Yeah.
That's not just some fleeting melody.
Right.
That's a foundational element that keeps coming back.
Uh-huh.
Transformed, developed, but it's always there.
Wow.
That's the kind of structural mastery
Yeah.
that really sets Bach apart.
So we've got master of counterpoint, harmonic innovator, musical architect. It's no wonder he's considered a genius.
All right.
But then there's this weird twist in his story. Like, despite all of this, he wasn't fully appreciated during his lifetime. How is that even possible?
It's true. I mean, he was respected, don't get me wrong, mostly as an organist.
Okay.
But it took until the 19th century for people to really grasp his genius as a composer.
Yeah.
It's almost like his music was too ahead of its time.
That is wild. Music this good gets overlooked. So how did this rediscovery finally happen?
Well, it's a really cool story. It's a story about like changing tastes, dedicated individuals, and just a touch of, serendipity.
Huh.
Imagine it's the 1800s.
Okay.
The Romantic era is in full swing. Composers like Beethoven and Schubert, they're all the rage. Their music is all about emotion, dramatic expression.
And their music was pretty different from Bach's structured mathematical world.
Exactly. And honestly, for a while there, it seemed like Bach's music might just fade away.
Oh, wow.
But then a few things happened.
Okay.
First, there was this growing interest in early music, like a historical curiosity about music from the past.
Like a musical renaissance, people going back and digging up these treasures.
Yes, exactly. And then there were Bach's own children. Some of them, like Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, were successful composers themselves. They really helped keep their father's music alive.
It's like they were carrying the torch.
Yeah, exactly. But the real turning point
Okay.
that came with this young composer named Felix Mendelssohn.
Okay.
He was a huge Bach fan. And in 1829, he conducted a performance of Bach's St. Matthew Passion in Berlin.
And this performance, this was like a big deal.
It was a game changer. People were blown away by the power, the beauty, the sheer scale of Bach's music. Imagine hearing this monumental work for the first time. The intricate choral writing, the dramatic recitatives, the soaring arias. It was a revelation.
Wow. One performance, and suddenly everyone realizes, hold on, this Bach guy was a genius.
I know. It's amazing, right?
It's amazing. It makes you wonder how many other masterpieces are out there just waiting to be rediscovered.
Right. That's the beauty of art. It transcends time, speaks to us in ways we never expect.
Yeah.
And in Bach's case, this rediscovery, it sparked a wave of enthusiasm that hasn't died down.
So Mendelssohn's performance was like lighting the fuse for the Bach revival we see today.
Perfect way to put it. From there, things just snowballed. Biographies, complete editions of his works were published, scholars dissecting his scores, uncovering all the secrets of his genius. It was like a whole new world of musical understanding had opened up.
And this revival is still going strong today, right? I mean, you see new recordings, new performances of Bach's music all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just limited to the classical music world.
Right.
Bach's music has, like, permeated popular culture.
Yeah.
You hear it in films, TV shows, even video games.
I mean, you hear those familiar melodies everywhere, like Air on the G string, Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. I swear I even heard a jazz arrangement of one of his organ fugues the other day.
It's incredible how adaptable his music is. You can hear it on period instruments for that, historically informed approach.
Yeah.
Or reimagined in a totally modern context.
It really speaks to the universality of his music.
Yeah.
That it can be enjoyed, appreciated in
Yep.
so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why do you think Bach continues to resonate with us so strongly even today? What is it about his music that just transcends time and cultural boundaries?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's a mix of things.
Yeah.
There's the sheer intellectual brilliance of his compositions, the way he weaves together melodies and harmonies.
Mhm.
It's like he's challenging us to keep up with his musical train of thought.
Yeah, to unravel the complexity of it all.
Yes. But at the same time, there's this profound emotional depth to his music. Whether it's, the soaring joy of a chorale or the poignant sorrow of a lament, Bach's music taps into something universal about the human experience.
It's like he's speaking a language that we all understand no matter what our background is or our musical expertise.
It's a language of emotion, of beauty, of pure genius.
Exactly. And that's why, even though he lived centuries ago, his music feels so incredibly relevant today. It still has that power to move us, to inspire us, to challenge us. And I think to remind us of the enduring power of human creativity.
Yes, absolutely.
It makes you wonder, what would Bach think if he could hear how his music has impacted the world, how it's been interpreted and reinterpreted over the centuries?
That's a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
But maybe the most important question is, how does his music impact you?
That's a great question. It really does make you think. For me, I think listening to Bach, it's like stepping into a whole different world.
Well, yeah.
It's this world of order and complexity, but then also this incredible beauty and emotion. It's like music that makes you think and feel all at the same time.
I think that's a really good way to put it. And that kind of duality, that's part of what makes his music so fascinating, even after all this time. It can be intellectually stimulating, but also deeply moving.
Yeah. And we were talking about Bach's impact earlier and how his music has influenced so many composers over the centuries. It's almost like he created this musical language, and then all these other composers, they could build on it and expand on it.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just about, directly copying him. It was about taking his ideas about harmony and counterpoint and form, and then using those as a starting point for their own creative explorations.
So who are some of the composers who are most influenced by Bach?
Well, Mozart, for one. Yeah. Mozart was really affected by Bach's music. He came across it when he was pretty young and had a huge impact on him.
Wow. Mozart, the guy who wrote The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni.
Yep.
Being influenced by Bach, that's so interesting to me. Their styles seem, I don't know, so different on the surface.
I know, right? It might seem that way, but if you really listen closely, you can hear these subtle echoes of Bach.
Yeah.
Like his mastery of counterpoint, that harmonic ingenuity. It's like Bach gave Mozart this set of musical tools.
Okay.
And then Mozart used them to create his own masterpieces.
It's really amazing to think about how these musical lineages like connect across generations. It's like passing a torch, but with musical ideas instead of fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got Beethoven.
Mm.
He was a huge Bach fan. I mean, he famously called Bach the true father of harmony.
Wow.
And even though Beethoven's music is definitely more dramatic and emotionally charged, you can still see that influence,
Yeah.
that mastery of counterpoint, those complex musical structures.
So Bach's influence like spanned that entire classical era.
Oh, yeah.
Did go even further.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Brahms, Wagner, Mahler, all these giants of the Romantic era, they were all deeply influenced by Bach. They were drawn to his intellectual rigor and the emotional depth of his music.
it's like Bach, he set this standard of excellence that all these other composers wanted to
Yeah,
reach.
yeah, exactly. He challenged them to push the boundaries of what was possible in music.
And his influence, like, it didn't stop there, did it?
Not at all. Even in the 20th century, you had composers like Stravinsky and Shostakovich. Their music sounds so different from Bach's, but even they acknowledged how much he influenced their work.
Wow, that's amazing. So Bach's legacy, it reaches far beyond just the Baroque era.
It does. It really does.
It's like he planted these musical seeds and they've just continued to blossom and evolve over time.
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
And it's not just composers, right? Like Bach's music has had a huge impact on, the people who perform his music and the people who just listen to it.
Of course.
His works are still performed all over the world.
Yeah.
They inspire musicians. They bring joy to audiences of all ages.
Absolutely. It really is a testament to the enduring power of his music. It transcends time. It transcends cultural boundaries.
Yeah. It speaks to something really deep within us.
It does.
I think that's really the main takeaway from our deep dive into the world of Johann Sebastian Bach. He wasn't just a composer.
Right.
He was a true musical visionary.
Mm-hmm.
And his genius, it continues to inspire and amaze us even all these centuries later.
It does.
It's been so fascinating to explore his life, his music, and his legacy.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I've come away with an even deeper appreciation for his brilliance. And, just a renewed sense of wonder at how music can connect us, even across centuries.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
And hopefully our deep dive has maybe inspired you to explore Bach's music a little bit more. There's just so much to discover. The intricate counterpoint of his fugues, the soaring melodies of his cantatas, the virtuosity of his organ works. I mean, there's something in Bach's music for everyone. So if you're looking for music that will challenge you, move you, and leave you in awe of the human capacity for creativity, I think Johann Sebastian Bach is a really great place to start. He's the ultimate musical time traveler, and his genius will continue to resonate for centuries to come.